So let's talk about a bike chaplain that's got far more durability than a battle tank. It's amazing what a relic and a little faith can do when you're hit by a barrage of demolisher shells. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're talking about a fun new combo from the Black Templars codex that might well be one of the toughest characters in Warhammer 40k for his points cost. The model in question happens to be a biker chaplain with the Tännhauser's Bones relic, with which he can make a pretty relentless monster who can laugh off the worst damage and heaviest firepower that the enemy has to throw at them. First we'll talk about the relic and what it does, roughly how survivable it can make this chaplain on a bike, and then a few other thoughts on combos that you could do with this incredibly durable unit and how he might be used in game. So Tännhauser's Bones are the last relic in the Black Templars codex, apparently the relic remnants of Marshal Tännhauser himself, who was martyred against the Black Legion, his bones distributed amongst the victors during the victory sermon, a nice reminder of some Black Templar imperial sacrifice, and maybe a bit of motivation not to wind up like this guy unless you want to be carried around on a relic backpack. Marshal Tännhauser seems to be far more durable in death than he was in life though, as these relic bones are some of the pinnacles of imperial defensive technology it would seem. I must admit I glossed over this rule when I was first reading the codex. I thought it was just another -1 damage relic, but you guys corrected me in the comments to say that it actually reduced each damage number to 1, not just by 1. That means that if your relic bearer is struck by a big damage d6 weapon and it gets through your saves, you're only ever going to take 1 damage from it, regardless of how much it does. This is just massively and enormously better, and it allows Space Marine characters to turn into massive tanking units. I believe the Sisters of Battle have a very similar option in one of their relics and warlord traits, and that is good on them, but it just seems so much more useful on Space Marines who actually have really quite decent defensive stat lines to begin with. They can have characters of 7 or more wounds as well, and also have far more melee threat built in just on their basic profiles. I'd say perhaps the best bearers of this relic are going to be anything that have a large amount of wounds. In particular, the Chaplain on bike seems like an absolutely great bet, particularly as you can combine that with a Litany of Divine Protection, the one that gives you a 5+ feel no pain against incoming wounds. That means that not only do you reduce each damage to 1, but you also have a decent chance of shrugging off that damage when you get it. Otherwise, I guess a Gravis Captain also has 7 wounds. You could think about a Captain on bike as well, as a bit more of an all-rounded choice with some more flexibility of weapons. You could take maybe a Thunderhammer or something for some more melee threat, or you could just use it literally just as a durability relic to keep an important buffing character alive. It means that you're just not going to lose something like an Apothecary or a Tech Marine to one stray high damage shot that goes through your defences. Still though, it does look like the bike chaplain is maybe the most obvious thing that you could put this on. It's very fast, has some decent melee weapons and shooting, and has 115 points with the Litany of Divine Protection and the Bones. You definitely could upgrade him to a Master of Sanctity and it might well be a good idea, but we'll get onto that with combos in a second. In any case, just at base, that gives you 7 wounds at toughness 5 with a 3+ save and a 4+ invul from his Rosarius, a 5+ feel no pain against incoming damage if you get off that Litany of Divine Protection on himself. Any normal damage that he suffers becomes damage 1, and if he gets struck by some really heavy weapons that are going to wound him very easily, you can also use Transhuman Physiology if he wants as well. Just in general, it means that you're going to need an absolutely massive amount of concentrated firepower to actually kill this guy. Damage 1 weapons tend to be the most efficient. He'll take around about 100 bolt rifle shots from Space Marines to bring him down, but for heavier firepower it doesn't really seem to get significantly easier than this. For overcharged plasma you need 47 plasma gun shots, and indeed there's no actual point in overcharging against this guy, it's all the same. Or if you got focused down by a bunch of Leman Russ Demolisher tank commanders, he would take 38 shots of those before he finally died, which is over 5 tank commanders worth. He could easily use Transhuman Physiology against those as well, and up that number to 63. Compared with heavy firepower, either damage 1 or mortal wounds seems to be the best. He would only take 10 or 11 before going down on average. He does get that 5+ feel no pain type save though that I've accounted for already, whether or not he passes his Litany of Divine Protection. Even if the enemy isn't trying to shoot him to death though, I think one of the best things about him is that he's almost guaranteed to survive a round of melee against some of the nastiest characters in the whole game. A fairly standard issue Space Marine captain, such as the one with the Indomitable Storm Shield and Mastercrafted Power Sword, would do less than a wound on average to him. A Fighty Drukhari Succubus with the Triptych Whip, hitting and wounding on 2s, does around 3 or 4 wounds. The Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, who's usually Death Incarnate to characters straight away, does only around 3 wounds per turn in melee. He will be able to do a bit more if you fired his mortal wounds out at him though. And interestingly enough, Mortarion himself only does around about 5 wounds with his swoop attacks with his scythe, which would again be less if you use transhuman physiology. Basically, this guy can just be absolutely insanely tough for 115 points. His melee certainly isn't spectacular, but that Crozius Arcanum should chip away at enemy characters and units each turn. So how best to make the use out of this really good durability then? The most obvious extra buff that we can stack on this guy are Warlord traits, and I think that it might well be a very common sight to see a guy with this relic and the Rights of War Warlord trait, the one that gives Space Marines an aura of objective secured. Getting Obsec on an insanely tough and very fast moving character is just great for winning the objective game. It seems very nice that you could just ping this guy onto an objective and know that against quite a few armies, the opponent's almost guaranteed not to be able to remove him that turn, or at least not unless they focus literally every bit of firepower on him. Otherwise though, you could think about things like Iron Resolve, which will give him +1 wound and a 6+ feel no pain. Perhaps good if you're using it for a non-chaplain, like a Bike Captain or the Indomitus pattern Captain. Or maybe just if you want to use that 5+ feel no pain litany somewhere else. It is pretty spectacular on things like Vanguard Veterans or Terminators. Could just allow you a fair bit more durability without having to sacrifice Divine Protection, and also without the chance of it failing. Otherwise you could just go for something like the Imperium Sword for some extra melee damage, and in theory you could double up with a Black Templar Warlord trait as well for an extra command point, though I must admit I don't really find many of them very exciting. You could get some bigger heroic interventions, or maybe an extra attack or pip of strength. They're not nothing, but I don't think that they're amazingly great value. Otherwise though, there's plenty of other interesting things that you can do with him. Basically anything that makes him either tougher or fightier is going to have great value on a unit that's so tough already. Transhuman physiology I'm sure could often be worth the command point, if you do just truly want to shrug off some of the most powerful attacks in the game like they're nothing. You could certainly make him a Master of Sanctity for more litanies. You could even think about passing up Divine Protection for the Mantra of Strength, just to make an enormously fighty chaplain, or perhaps combining it with the Black Templars self-buffing litany. If you're going for a more slow-moving character, you could think about using an Apothecary to heal lost wounds. That could be really grim if your opponent has had to put so much effort into taking them off in the first place. And the Templar Vows could be another way of getting a small boost, either better melee, or maybe the mini transhuman physiology that comes from Uphold the Honour of the Emperor. Perhaps one of the most interesting little combos with this guy though, is that Black Templars have a 2 command point stratagem called For the Emperor's Honour. That basically means that if he gets in contact with an enemy character, then for 2 command points they can force the enemy character to only attack this model. It means that say if you multi-charged an enemy character, say something really nasty like Mortarion, you could force Mortarion to put all of his crazily powerful attacks into the Chaplain, have a very good chance of not even killing him, while the rest of the models that charged him could get to work in combat. Seems like it could be a really powerful way of dealing with a heavy hitter who also happens to be a character. In game, I think basically the challenge is to try and force your opponent to chew through all that toughness at a time when it's actually going to be meaningful, and not say after you've lost your entire rest of your army. I think that's another one of the reasons that really attracts me to the Bike Chaplain, as his great mobility is going to guarantee to put him where he needs to be, and pinging him onto objectives with the Rights of War certainly seems that that's going to be a way to either force the opponent to deal with him, or force them to give up a fair few victory points. Otherwise he can just be a massive obstacle for the toughest units in the enemy army, perhaps just locking up and shrugging the damage off for characters that he's really got no right to be that tough against, or just distracting a ton of guns away from their better targets of the rest of the Templar battle line. In any case, I think he'd be quite a fun unit to use, quite a frustrating unit to play against, and I suspect one that we'll be seeing in a fair few Black Templar army lists. So let me know what you think of the combo down in the comments below, particularly if there's anything that I've missed about this guy, or any other cool combos that could well be worth it. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, hopefully including a fair few more things for the Black Templars over the next week or so. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, and you'd like to help support and keep them coming, I would just like to mention my Element Games affiliate link, which you can find down in the video description. If you are thinking about picking up models in the near future and you live in the UK, Element Games is a pretty excellent discount retailer. They usually give 10 to 20% off Games Workshop's miniatures. If you were thinking about ordering in something soon, if you click the link, a small amount of the profits goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever when you buy. Just something to bear in mind if you were thinking about ordering in some new models in the future. Otherwise, for people in the USA and Canada, there is also an Amazon affiliate link as well. That one works just the same. Click the link, buy literally anything off Amazon whatsoever, and a small amount goes to help support the channel. It doesn't cost you any more, so it can just be something to do with regular Amazon purchases if you're going to make them anyway. A massive thank you to you guys who have been using those links. It really is very nice of you, and it's certainly one of the things that allows me to make these videos quite so regularly. In any case, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.